In search of a vanished girl, a former police officer encounters a clandestine organization trying to invoke a dreadful supernatural being. Get ready to relive the adventure as we recap the story of horror and drama film today. The Empty Man, production year 2020. Yoravali, Bhutan, 1995. Four companions, Greg, Paul, Fiona, and Ruthie, are trekking up a mountain to find a location they have been seeking for some time. A message stating Da1 is displayed. After he plays into what appears to be a flute-like instrument, Paul then appears to perceive something beckoning him. He walks until he tumbles into a crack. Greg enters to save him and discovers Paul seated, staring at a strange-looking skeleton while quietly mumbling to himself. The skeleton seems to shift a little, but Greg manages to pull Paul out just in time. The friends take Paul outside and see an empty house nearby, so they decide to stay there for the time being. On the second day, Paul's state seems to remain the same, as he lies in silence without moving. Outside, Ruthie seems to spot a silhouette in the persistent snowstorm. As she retreats, the figure follows her steps before abruptly rushing toward her, but she dashes back into the house and closes the door. Upon hearing thumping outside, she maintains her position against the door until she recognizes Greg and Fiona. Ruthie inquires if they noticed or spotted anyone outside, but they refuse. While Ruthie sleeps longer, it seems that Paul is murmuring something into her ear. Day 3, Greg, Fiona, and Ruthie take Paul along as they proceed with their hike in the region. Ruthie looks bewildered until she pulls out a knife and strikes Greg and Fiona, sending their bodies over the cliff before leaping off herself, leaving Paul alone as he plays his flute. Skip to Missouri in 2018, where ex-detective James Lasombra is employed at a security shop. He often listens to a voice asking, "Where were you?" As it's been a year since his wife Allison and son Henry passed away in a car crash. He often checks on teenager Amanda Quayle since he is friends with her mom Nora. Since her father's death, Amanda's relationship with Nora has been poor, leading her to view James as a substitute figure. Amanda quickly seems to have fled, and Nora contacts James for assistance. They discover a note on her mirror inscribed in blood. "The empty man compelled me to do it." Once the official detectives start working on the case, James chooses to conduct some investigation of his own. James goes to the high school in search of Amanda's friend Devara Walsh. She is in his car, recounting a few nights prior when she, Amanda, and friends Braniandon, Maya, Lisa, and Duncan walked across the nearby bridge, where Amanda chose to invoke the empty man, an urban legend that emerges after 3 days. On the initial day, those who invoke him will listen to him calling out to them. On the following day, he reveals himself to them. On the third day, he discovers them. The teenagers each blew into a bottle following tradition. Devara also recalls watching Amanda lean in to whisper in Brandon's ear. Devara believes she spots the empty man in the forest just before exiting James's vehicle. Later that evening, James visits the bridge to further investigate Amanda's disappearance. He discovers the bottle they had been using and blows into it. James subsequently descends a ladder that goes under the bridge, where he encounters the hanged bodies of Brandon, Julianne, Maya, Lisa, and Duncan. The identical message from Amanda's mirror is likewise inscribed. In the meantime, Devara walks into a spa, and as the fog thickens, the empty man strikes, sufficiently to get, stabbing her with scissors while making it appear as though she is inflicting the harm on herself. It is officially classified as a suicide, yet James considers the situation too unnatural to accept as true. Today marks day 1 for James. He investigates deeper into the source of the empty man to progress sufficiently to get. He investigates a cult known as the Pontifex Institute that has beliefs rooted in regions like Bhutan, which clarifies how the 4 friends encountered empty man there. James arrives at the Institute's venue, where the leader, Other Parsons, addresses a large audience. Later, he converses with James and mentions empty man sufficiently to get, describing him as a being that grants his followers their wishes as long as they obey him. Day 2, James begins to follow individuals linked to the Institute. He is taken to a hospital where an older Paul is resting in a vegetative state, yet the individuals entering his room seem to be bowing and chanting something towards him. The other detectives scold James for being involved in the case despite his retirement. He eventually visits Nora, who remains anxious about her daughter. Sufficient to get. James inquires whether Amanda was aware of her and him seemingly being together, but Nora replies that she wasn't. James is taken into the forest where he encounters what seems to be the entire cult dressed like empty man, approaching him nearer and nearer before they pursue him. James dashes to his vehicle and flees from the cult. On the third day, James encounters Amanda, who is being swayed by the cult and the empty man sufficiently to get. She clarifies to James that a void individual with nothing to acquire or forfeit is the ideal medium to convey empty man's messages. She begins to echo, "Where were you?" to James as he is compelled to confront the trauma that has been tormenting him. On the evening when Allison and Henry were murdered, he was involved in a relationship with Nora. Since then, he has held himself responsible for not being present to stop it. James, now completely empty of his awareness and humanity, enters the hospital to reach Paul's room. He empties his firearm into Paul's skull. The physicians and nursing staff, all part of the cult, regard James as their new empty man. And showing this story ends here. Appreciate a subscribe, and please remember to like. Thanks for watching.